Hey, this is Brilith with Nox Games Studios, and today we're going to continue our series on implementing multiplayer in Unity using Photon and Playfab. In this video, we're going to code out our friend system in the project. We will be using Playfab to store a list of friends a player has added, while we will be using Photon to connect with these players inside of the game. If you find this video useful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you can stay up to date on this series. Now let's head into Unity and start adding code to the UI we set up in the last video. But let's go into Canvas and let's go to our add friend, and we're going to be adding a script to this. So let's go code, make a new folder, create UI, and we'll call this script UI add friend. Now let's attach that script to this add friend UI. Let's open this up. Let's get rid of these first two using statements and add a using system. Get rid of both of these default Unity methods. So what we want to do here is a serialized field. And this will be a private string display name. Then we'll do a public event. It'll be static so others can see it. And we'll pass a string. We do this. And it'll be on add friend equals delegate. And what we will use this event for is when we add a friend, everything else subscribed to it will take action. So let's make a public void method where we can set the friend name, and it'll take in a string name. And all we'll do is do display name equals name. This will be set up as a on change when people are entering text into the input field. And then we will have the button event. That'll be another public void add friend. And what we'll do is add friend dot invoke, and we'll pass in display name. And just to make sure that we don't send a display name that's blank, we'll do if string dot is null or empty, display name will just return. Now this is just a simple guard statement. Now let's save that and let's wire this up in Unity's UI. Now that we're back in Unity, let's expand add friend, and let's go to the friend input. And down here on the on change, let's add and drag in add friend. Drop down the methods UI friend, and let's do the dynamic string of set add friend name. Let's go to the add button. On click, let's hit add. Drag in our add friend UI, and we'll do add friend. And so that will set up the beginning step where we're triggering this on add friend event. The next thing we want to do is go to our code and go to Playfab and create a new script called Playfab friend controller. Because when we hit add friend here, we're going to add the friend in Playfab, and then we'll trigger the Photon portion to work. So now that we have that created, let's go to our network controller, create an empty, we'll do Playfab, right click on Playfab and do another create empty, and we'll do friend, and we'll drag that Playfab friend controller here. Now let's open that up. So let's add a couple using statements here. So using Playfab, and another one using Playfab client models, as well as using system. So we're going to add an awake method, and on the awake we're going to go UI add friend dot on friend, and we're going to subscribe to that, and we'll do handle add Playfab friend. Then we'll create another Unity method called destroy, copy this add friend line, and then we'll unsubscribe from it on destroy. Now let's implement this method. We'll do name, move this row, and I'm also going to drag this down below our start and update. And I'm going to remove the update. I'm going to change this to private and get rid of that comment. So how are we going to handle this? We're going to do a var request equals new add friend request. And all we're just going to pass in here is the friend title display name. We're gonna do name. And then let's do Playfab client API dot add friend. We'll pass it in the request we just created, and then on friend added success, and then on failure. This on friend added success is going to be the callback method that happens when you successfully add a friend, and then the on failure method is the failed callback method. So let's implement these. Change this to result, to error. The error, we'll fill that out and say debug.log error occurred when adding a friend, and we'll print out the error.generate error port. However, when we do add a friend, we're going to get all of the Playfab friends that we have. We'll do get Playfab friends. This isn't a method yet, so let's implement that as well. So this method is going to be a simple var request equals new get friends list request, and we're going to pass it in a few different parameters here. It'll be include Steam friends. We're going to make that false because we don't care about that. Include Facebook friends. We're going to make that false, and Xbox token is going to be null. Let's use the Playfab client API dot get friends list. Let's pass it in the request. Then on friends list success. And then for the error, we'll call this on failure. Implement this callback here. And we'll modify this on failure so it's a little bit more generic. So we'll say error occurred, and then we'll print out the error. Call Playfab friend error. When we successfully get the list of friends, say result, you'll see we have result.friends, and this is a list of Playfab friend infos. So let's scroll back up here and let's create a public static action. There'll be a list of friend info. And this will be on friend list updated equals delegate. This will allow other scripts to subscribe to this action. We'll do on friends list updated dot invoke, and we'll pass in result dot friends. We will be using this to trigger Photon for it to know when it should update the friends list internally. So that will complete all the code we need to write to have this add a friend in Playfab. We will add deleting a friend in Playfab shortly, but we need to write some additional code before we can do that. So let's switch back in Unity and set up the Photon scripts. So let's go to our Photon game object here and create a new empty, and we'll call this friends. Let's go to our code, and let's create a new C# script. Call this Photon friend controller. Now let's attach this friend controller to our friends game object that we just created. And to get started, we actually need to update this Photon connector real quick. Let's open that up. In the Photon connector, we need to create a new event, and we'll call that public static action get Photon friends, and this will be a delegate. And we will invoke this when we join a lobby. So here, when we're doing test room, we're actually going to remove this and do get friend Photon friends dot invoke. Now let's open up our Photon friend controller. Let's start adding some additional using statements. So we'll be using Photon.pun, using Photon.realtime. And for this, we're gonna do something special. where we're going to create some aliases for these friend info, because we will be dealing with Photon and Playfab, and both of those have a friend info in it. We'll do using Playfab friend info equals playfab.clientModels.friend info. And we'll do using Photon friend info equals photon.realtime.friend info. We will want this to inherit from mono behavior uncallbacks. Let's also add a using system. So on the awake, we want to subscribe to an event. So we'll want to do playfab friend controller dot on friends list updated, and we'll do handle friends updated. And on the destroy Unity method, we will unsubscribe to that. So we'll do playfab friend controller dot on friend list updated, handle friend. Now let's implement this method. Say friends. You can get rid of this start and update method. So in this, we will be calling the Photon find friends method. But before we do that, we're just going to check to see if the friends dot count is not equal to 0. So basically, we're checking to verify we actually have friends. And if we do, then we're going to find those friends. And you can see this already was smart enough to use the Playfab friend info, because that is where this is coming from, is the Playfab controller. Let's do string array, and we're going to call this friend display names equals friends.select. And we can't do that because we need to add another using system.link. Now we can use the link statement. Do f equals greater than sign, lambda, title display name, and we'll do to array. So we will go through this list and we will pull out the title display name and we'll store that in the string array. Now we can do photon network dot find friends, and we can pass in friend display names. Now let's implement the Photon callback. And that is public override void on friend list updated. This is a list of Photon friend info. We'll call this friend list. And now we will invoke another event. See, I think I might have misspelled this. It is not updated, it is update. We'll do a on display friends dot invoke. We'll pass it in friend list. What we're going to do now is create a public static event that we will pass in a list of Photon friend info. This will be on display friends, and that'll be just an empty delegate. So we will have our UI subscribe to this on display friends. So the next thing we need to do is go create a UI controller. So what we need to do now is go to our UI friend, and we need to attach a script here. So let's go UI create C# script, and we'll call this UI friend. Let's attach that to this game object, and let's open that up. Let's go ahead and change these using statements. So we're going to be using system, using TM Pro for our text mesh pros, and we'll be using photon.realtime for our friend info. Remove this start and update. Let's start with a serialized field, and this will be private tmp underscore text, and this will be our friend name text, and we'll do serialized field, and this will be our private friend info friend. We'll create a public static action, and this will be a string, and it'll be on friend on remove friend equals delegate. So this is how we will remove a friend. Let's create a public void initialize function. This is how we'll initialize this game object. We'll pass it in a friend info called friend. we will do this dot friend equals the friend that we're passing in. We'll do friend name text dot set text is this dot friend dot user ID. We also want to do public void remove friend. We'll pass this in a string. Actually, no, we don't need to pass it in a string. We'll do public void remove friend. We'll do on remove friend question mark invoke, and we will pass it the friend dot user ID. Now let's get this set up inside of Unity. Let's modify this UI friend. So let's enable it. Go to our Text Mesh Pro and drag that in. Now let's go to the button. Let's add a click event. Drag in UI friend. UI friend, and we'll do remove friend. We'll rename this to remove button. Now let's go over here to override and let's apply that to our prefab. Let's disenable that for now. Go to Playfab and go to our Playfab friend controller. And on awake, let's do UI friend dot remove friend on remove friend, and we'll do handle remove friend. And let's also unsubscribe when we are doing on destroy. Implement this method. Remove the start method. Paste this under this handle one. Do name. We'll do a var request equals new remove friend request. This request takes in the friend Playfab ID. And this takes in the friend Playfab ID. And to get that, we actually need to cache the friends that we get when we update from Playfab. Let's scroll up here to the top and do private friend info. I'll do friends. This will be a list. Just to make sure, on our wake, we'll do friends equals new list of friend info. Now we will assign friends to be equal the results of the friend list success. We'll make this equal result dot friends. So now we can do string ID equals, now we can do another link statement. Let's go up here and do using system.link to friends.first or default. We'll do where f lambda f.display name is equal to name dot string. And then we can use this ID variable here. We can do Playfab client API dot remove friend. We can pass in the request. For a successful remove, we can do on friend remove success, and then on failure it fails. Let's implement this method. Let's drag this down here, paste it. Result. So when we remove a friend, all we want to do is actually get the Playfab friends. There we go. We can save that, and now that should link up correctly. So now we need to set up the UI friend controller. Let's switch back over to Unity and start that process. Now that we're back in Unity, go to our code and go to UI. And let's create another script. That's UI display friends. Let's attach that to our friends scroll view and open up that. So let's remove the start and update method here. What we want to do is basically on awake, we're going to subscribe to the Photon friend controller on display friends. We'll do a handle display friends method, and we'll unsubscribe to this in the destroy Unity method. We'll do Photon friend controller on display friends handle display friends. Let's implement this method. Say friends. Before we can actually implement this method, we need to declare a few variables up here. So serialized field. This will be a private transform called friend container. We'll do another one that's serialized field, and this will be a UI friend called the friend prefab. We'll do UI friend prefab. What we're gonna do is for each transform child in friend container, we're gonna do destroy child. We need to do this to make sure we clear out all of the other friend UI elements that may be showing up when we display the new set of friends. Let's do for each friend info, friend and friends. So for each friend, we're gonna do UI friend equals instantiate UI friend prefab, and we'll make the parent the friend container. We're gonna do a UI friend dot initialize, and we'll pass in friend. And we'll save that. Now we have the ability to update our UI, our Photon friends, as well as our Playfab friends. And we have the functionality of being able to add and remove those friends. There's one last thing we need to do, and that's in the Playfab friend controller. On the awake, we also need to subscribe to the Photon connector. And this will be the .get Photon friends. We'll do handle get friends. We'll unsubscribe on destroy. Let's implement this method. And all we're gonna do in this method is call get playfab friends. One other change we need to make is on this ID up here, we need to do .playfab_d, and we can get rid of that. There we go. Now let's save this and go back into Unity and test it out. Before we can test this, we need to actually assign the friend container and the UI friend prefab. Let's go to our prefab folder. Let's drag in UI friend. And for the container, let's drag in this content transform. Now let's switch over to our login scene. Let's hit play. Type in Nox and let's log in. Now let's enter a name. We're going to type in Brilith. We're going to hit add, and you can see now we are friends with Brilith. To verify this, let's go to Playfab's website and see if it's set up there correctly. So now that we're back in Playfab's dashboard for our game, let's go to players. Let's hit search. Now you can see we have two different players. Let's go click on Nox, go to friends, and you can see that Nox is friends with Brilith. But if we go to players, search, go to Brilith, go to friends, Brilith is not friends with Nox. Let's switch back into the game and see if we can remove Brilith as a friend from Nox. All right, so now that we're back in Unity, let's go and click on this X next to Brilith and see if we remove him as a friend. All right, so it looks like he's still here. Go look at I added some debug log statements just so we could view that. You can see it looks like we do the playfab remove and it's successful, but it's not repainting the UI. Let's go look at this handle getting Photon friends. So this is our issue. So we put this statement here. So if the friends count is not equal to 0, then we're not going to do this Photon network.find friends, which calls this callback of on friend list updated. And this on display friends invoke is what actually repaints the UI. What we need to do here is do an else statement for when there isn't any friends. And in this else statement, all we need to do is make a list of Photon friend info. Call this friends equals new list of Photon friend information. And we'll do on display friends dot invoke, and we'll pass in friends. So this will successfully update our UI. And it looks like we have an issue with naming here because we already have a friends. Let's do friend list. And that will fix our issue where it didn't repaint the UI for us. One other thing we need to go do is actually update the UI display friends. And one issue is we're going to get an error message where we're not able to destroy. And that's because we weren't supposed to destroy the transform. We're trying to destroy the game object. So let's save that. Let's restart our game. With the game restarted, let's type in Nox again, log in. You can see Nox has a friend Brilith. Let's hit the X, and now it's gone. And let's go into Playfab and make sure that that is correct online. In Playfab, let's go to players again, search, click on Nox, go to friends, and now Nox has no friends. So that will actually finish the adding and removing of friends in our friend system and updating the UI accordingly. If this video helped you out, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. The next video in the series will focus around building an invite system and allow you to join your friends by clicking on them. Also, please join our Discord if you have any questions or requests for additional videos. There will be a link in the description below, along with some additional resources you can look at. Hope you have a good one, and as always, thank you for watching.